Hello and welcome to this digital camera magazine video tutorial. Today we're going to show you how to create a rather interesting montage in the style of David Hockney. Basically what we've done here is to take just over 30 images. They're all taken at the same focal length using a manual exposure, so the exposure throughout the image is pretty much the same. And what we're going to do is just to place those into a larger document and manually align them. So we get a really sort of creative montage styled image. So to get started, we'll just take a quick look down here at the image gallery, and we can see here we've got all of our different images taken in a local bookshop with my colleague Mark just sat there reading a book on Lisbon. As you see, they're all taken at pretty much the same focal length, and what we're going to do is just to take these, overlay them as a series of different layers so that we can create the full image of where Mark was sat surrounded by books. Okay, the first thing to do is obviously to create our new large document. So if I just minimize those two images down and then go Control N, and that will bring up our new document dialog window. Now we'll name this montage, and we want a width of about 6,000 pixels. Our height is 6,000 pixels, and our resolution is 300 dpi, which gives us an actual image size, as in file size, of 103 megabytes, just for starting off. Okay, that should automatically maximize. And now quite simply with Photoshop Elements 5, all we have to do is pick up the images from the photo gallery and just drag and drop them directly into the workspace. And after a couple of seconds you'll see that picture just appearing there. And all we do is we just click and drag that into position. Then we can go back into the picture gallery and drag and drop our second image in. Now this is all a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, so what you really need to do is just to slowly build up the pieces as you would with pieces from a jigsaw puzzle, and as you find and locate them, just drag and drop them into place. Now this whole process can take rather a long time depending on how many images you've taken, but take your time over it and try to get each layer and each new image to align as best you can. On areas such as this, we've just overlaid an image on which intersects Mark's head, and it's quite a good idea just to zoom into the picture a little bit just to check on how that image is actually aligning. To do that, just go Control plus or Apple plus, and that'll zoom the picture in. To move around the screen, just hold down your spacebar, left click, and then you can just very quickly move in and around your picture. So here we can see we're just out of place a little bit. Just shift it around until we've got something we're pleased with, and just release the mouse button. And again we can just continue on adding new bits, new images to the image. And again, if we want to zoom back out, just Control minus or Apple minus. Okay, with a bit of patience and time, we now have our whole variety of images building up our nice montage. And if we want to go back in and adjust any of those images or change their location, or you find that they're surplus to requirement for the image, then with Photoshop Elements 5, all you need to do is just drag your cursor over the images, and you can see a blue line will surround each of the individual layers. So once you find the image you want to adjust, let's take one up here by Mark's head, just left click, you'll see that layer is now selected, layer 28, over in the layers palette, and we can now go in and we can move that around if and how we want. Move that back into place. The other great thing is that to create this type of montage, and by using a manual exposure, we've got a pretty even exposure throughout the whole scene, and much better than if you were using either shutter priority or aperture priority or even program. So we don't really need to do any adjustments if we wanted to equalize the exposure across all of the images. In this particular circumstance, that's sometimes quite nice. It gives that extra texture to the build of the image. And what we can do is we can now just go over these images, select one, and then just go Apple L or Control L just to bring up our levels dialog window. And then if we just purely use the midtone slider, and we can just slide that over to the left, and we're just lightening up that singular layer. And we can do that, go around each of these layers, and if we want to just add that sort of texture to the image, we can just either lighten, darken, or adjust them however we feel appropriate. And that's the whole great thing about the creative process of this type of montage. Once you're happy with the effect and the lightening and darkening of each of these layers, we now need to flatten them down. So if you scroll right to the top of your image and select the top layer, and then scroll all the way down to the bottom, hold down Shift and select the very first layer, and then you just got to go Control or Apple E, and that'll actually merge all of those selected layers down into one. With that done, we're now going to correct some of the lighting because we photographed inside. We used the camera white balance to get as natural a light as possible, but we can now resolve that by using a levels adjustment layer. So if we go to the adjustment layer, select levels, the levels dialog window will appear, and it's quite a good idea just to zoom in a little bit into the picture. And what we're going to do is just to select our black point and our white points. So if we select the set black point pipette, and we'll just go over to Mark's jumper here, click once, our black point is now selected. Now we're going to select our white point, and we can just go over to the spine of one of these books, and we can very quickly just see how that's really nicely adjusted the tone of the image. Click OK again, and we now have a naturally toned montage image. And the final part is just to select the colour that you want for your background. At the moment we've got white, which is as the default, but whilst experimenting earlier I found that a nice black background actually helps to draw things out a little bit. So we select our background layer, just left click to fill with the paint bucket, and after a few seconds we have our black background and our final montage image. So as you see, it's an extremely easy process, a little bit time consuming, aligning each of the layers and each of the images together, and then going through and doing the levels adjustment, but the final result is absolutely stunning. Okay, so that's how to create a stunning montage image in the style of David Hockney.